Member for Geraldton.
Thank you, Acting Speaker. I rise to speak today on the Legal Deposit Amendment Bill 2023. I, like many of you, absolutely adore libraries. For many of us, childhood visits to a library are a memory, and like me, you'll support this amendment as it will improve library operations and unlock resources for libraries to improve programming, develop and promote their local cultural industries, and become more sustainable through collaboration and improving deposit processes and streamlining the complex tasks of cataloguing, indexing and recording, managing and providing access to deposited publications. This bill will delete Section 12 of the Legal Deposit Act 2012, making it possible to make regulations for the deposit of Western Australia internet publications with the State Library using NED, the National E-Deposit Service, to collect, preserve and make available online publications. This will minimise compliance costs and efforts required by publishers to satisfy their legal deposit obligations and maximise efficiency and cost-effectiveness of the State Library. The NED is a collaboration of Australia's 9 national, state and territory libraries. For more than 100 years, Australian librarians have captured literary works, academic publications, novels, music and news articles by documenting them for public access and preservation of our cultural heritage supported by legal deposit laws. This ensures that a comprehensive collection of our country's published works is preserved for future generations. And with the great disruptor of the internet and proliferation of self-publishing, it is important that we support libraries to continue to capture new media forms of our cultural expression and research output. Journalist Peter Grest was present at the launch of NED in 2019 and said, "In this age of information disorder, libraries have never been more crucial. Collecting, organising and making Australian publications available to people is not just fundamental to our freedoms, it is fundamental to our ability to make sense of the world." I have many fond memories of my local library, the Geraldton Regional Library. It used to be just situated straight across the road from my high school, Stella Maris College, and so that was actually the natural place where we used to hang out after school at 3 p.m, while either waiting for the bus or waiting for our parents to come and pick us up after school if we didn't feel like walking, which was often the case for me. I was actually always there supposed to be doing my homework, but instead used this time to catch up with friends, you'd be able to grab the latest Dolly magazine, which I never actually was able to purchase myself, but I could have the opportunity to read there, and feigned being studious I remember taking all my school books across the road there, unpacking them, putting them out on tables, and then just packing them back into my bag again and taking them back home.
You could seal Dolly inside.
You're onto me. Exactly, God, I have a feeling I'm not alone. These days, our fabulous library has relocated to Marine Terrace, which is right in the middle of town. And it's the wonderful staff there do an absolutely tremendous job fulfilling the core duties of a library by providing a large range of fiction and non-fiction publications and running the types of programs like that the community like to enjoy, for early childhood through to an outreach service for seniors and those in assisted living who have limited mobility. But I have to say, one of my favourite services provided by the Geraldton Regional Library, and this might come as a shock to some of you after I've just disclosed my passion for Dolly magazine, is their local history collection. A collection of newspapers, photographs, books and some sketches, maps, newsletters and annual reports, and the oral history interviews, the local newspapers and genealogical references. I love the opportunity of being able to go through and see, through the microfiche particularly, indexes, etc., the history of Geraldton and what people were talking about and what news was, of interest, 30 or 40, 50, 60 years ago. And the fact that we're able to do that through the ephemera, which of focus on the Midwest, is, I think, an absolute treat. The local history collection boasts also an extensive Randolph-Stowe collection. Julian Randolph-Stowe is an award-winning novelist and poet who was born in Geraldton in November 1935. His works include To the Islands and The Merry-Go-Round in the Sea, which is my absolutely most favourite book of all time. I remember studying it first through Year 12 English Literature class, and then reading it again later on in life as an adult. Randolph truly captures the feeling of living in regional Western Australia through his descriptive use of words, the sounds and the feelings, especially life in Geraldton, a town by the sea. I remember particularly when I read his description of the leaning trees in Greenock. If any of you have ever made your way along the Brand Highway from Perth to Geraldton, you would have gone past the wonderful leaning trees that go along the road there. What I particularly loved was his way of describing the leaning trees, that it reminded him of his old grandmother, who used to have long grey hair, and he used that as a description of how when she used to wash her hair in the basin, and she would be leaning forward and washing her hair in the basin, and how he likened that to how the leaning trees look like. I always love that description. I think a lot of people talk about the leaning trees, but I always think about how Randolph-Stowe described how the leaning trees reminded him of his old grandmother as a little boy washing her hair in the basin. His legacy is preserved and celebrated by the Geraldton Regional Library through the annual Randolph-Stowe Young Writers Award. Over 540 entries were received from young writers across the Midwest for the awards this year. I absolutely do not envy the work of the judges. Somehow they are able to manage to narrow it down to award 33 entrants, including 2 recipients of the annual Honourable Sandra Carr MLC Emerging Young Writer Scholarship Award. Another great event coordinated by the Geraldton Library is the Big Sky Readers and Writer Festival, which some of you may have heard of. It has now been running for 18 years. In previous years, myself and member for the Agriculture Region, the Honourable Sandra Carr, were sponsors of this 4-day event, and I'm pleased to learn that this year that the library received a grant from the Regional and Remote Festival Funds of $22,525, and the City of Greater Geraldton have stated that they have allocated a portion of $81,000 Lottery West grant for cultural experiences to assist in the presentation of this year's festival, which was held over 4 days in late September to early October. The program was absolutely jam-packed with large and intimate events and was a showcase of Geraldton's love of literature, with local and visiting authors and illustrators presenting panels, workshops and readings. What's actually really quite interesting about the past writers' festivals is the amount of local writers and novelists and authors that return back to Geraldton, to be presenting on the panels. So Geraldton is actually quite well placed in being the place that bears cultural artists such as a famous Geraldton author as Holden Shepherd. You may have heard the story recently that he discovered that some of his work was among 27,000 books that were scraped and analysed by a website called Prose Craft, where the outputs effectively trained another program called Shakespeare to teach others how to manage their writing process. What it potentially means is that new works could be created in Holden Shepherd's writing style, in his voice, but without his consent or payment to the original author. It is a real concern and cements the importance of this amendment to improve the collection of original published Australian works through NED to streamline collections and centralise access for Australians all over the country. Libraries will always have my support for the crucial function they play by providing access to information to regional, remote and low-resourced communities. Their role is in preserving our cultural heritage and their endeavour to create a thriving creative ecosystem by creating development opportunities and exposure for emerging local authors, artists and content creators. Libraries also have the capacity, creativity and flexibility to be adaptive to change. During COVID-19, libraries across Western Australia continue to improve and provide services through mobile libraries, contactless book exchange and provision of web-based magazines, newspapers, books and other media. I'm glad that library membership is free because I couldn't possibly put a value on a monthly subscription. Libraries have also been adoptive of new technologies. They are the R&D specialists of information collection, cataloguing, indexing and access. It's great to see libraries strengthen our social infrastructure by creating the hub for our community to learn new technologies too, by providing internet access, printing and scanning services. And as I've learnt, you can access 3G printing machines at Beachborough, Bullsbrook, Allenbrook and Midland libraries in the City of Swan. And in the City of Swan are sewing machines, which I thought was fabulous, and on overlockers at the Canning Library's Makerspace. I think these are all really important because it contributes to a less wasteful society where we have access and options for making and mending clothing, designing and creating 3D printing items and even laser cutting tools, where a member of a library can tinker about without having to make an expensive investment into a piece of equipment. One of the strategic initiatives of the NED, the National E-Deposit Service, is to integrate First Nations collection description guidelines and Indigenous cultural and intellectual property protocols into the NED policy framework and software. This has been demonstrated through the Culturally Safe Libraries Professional Development Program, where participating libraries implement practices to sustain and insist upon culturally informed and respectful ways of working with First Nations colleagues, communities and collections. A demonstration of this in real-life application is the State Library's Storylines online archive, which has played a pivotal role in providing a safe and responsive keeping place for Aboriginal people in accessing its heritage collections. Material identified as sensitive, secret or sacred can be restricted or removed in a flexible and responsive way, allowing for Aboriginal knowledge and terminology to be added to the library's collections. Another example of culturally safe library is the Geraldton Regional Library, where they support Yamaji people in collecting, archiving and promoting culture and language of the traditional owners of our regions. Last year's Will and New Words of Wisdom language exhibition was coordinated by the Geraldton Regional Library in partnership with local Aboriginal artist Nicole Dickerson, where words culturally approved for use were interpreted by local school children into works of art, which were then displayed into the Geraldton CBD Post Office Lane with a lightbox open air gallery, which I was really absolutely thrilled to be able to attend the launch of the exhibition that day. Before I close, I would like to take this opportunity to also relay my condolences to Mary Moore, the Snell family and friends of Professor Ted Snell. Born in Geraldton in 1949, Ted's long career in arts and literature made him very well known in the Perth art scene and internationally. He championed local artists across his many leadership roles, including those at John Curtin Gallery, at Curtin University as Professor of Contemporary Art and Dean of Art, Lawrence Wilson Art Gallery and the University of Western Australia as Director and Chief Cultural Officer, and finally at Edith Cowan University, where he became an Honorary Professor, School of Arts and Humanities in 2021. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to the Legal Deposit Amendment Bill 2023. It's always fabulous to be able to talk about the great work of libraries. I commend the bill to the House.